We're here with another episode of Before You Buy, the show where we give you some straight up gameplay and our first impressions on the latest games releasing, and today we're talking about Pillars of Eternity 2, Deadfire. Hey PC gamers, first off, look, I need to be really frank here. I don't have too much experience with the original Pillars of Eternity. I know, I'm coming into this one pretty green, so I'll be honest, my perspective might not be valuable for some of you fans out there. I'd say if you are looking for a more comprehensive look, there are other folks out there that do it extremely well. I don't mind if you need to look elsewhere. I'm sorry if this video has some shortcomings, but I'm still just gonna talk about the game from my perspective. With that being said, I will say, after spending some time with Pillars of Eternity 2, I feel like a big dumb idiot now for not playing more than a few hours of the first one, because this game is pretty damn solid and filled to the brim with really fun, passionately made stuff to experience. In the game, you once again take up the same shoes of the Watcher, a character you create that is essentially gifted with the ability to see and speak with the dead. Look, that's the short of it. At the start of the game, you save the day and you're reigning over a peaceful kingdom until the god Aethys awakens and destroys half your kingdom and goes stomping away. The other gods call in a favor you owe them and ask you to catch up to him and figure out what he's doing. That's the start of it. Look, I'm glossing over it because if I talk about it too much, I might get something wrong, and I don't want to do that. But I will say the lore here is dense, and the game takes up after the events of the previous game, so some pre-existing knowledge is definitely helpful. Obsidian has built a really interesting universe and great lore here from the previous game as well. And even as more of a newcomer, I was able to get into it and understand the appeal, I'll say that. The game does do a decent job of describing events of the previous game in a fairly quick fashion too. Even if it's a lot to digest at first, it does work. And in a nice touch that I think a lot of players will appreciate, the game lets you import your saved character from the first game. I think that is absolutely crucial and awesome. But on the flip side, you can make it from scratch if you're a new player, deciding from a predetermined backstory and decisions made from the previous game. Now, once you finally set out on your own, what you get is a classic PC RPG through and through. Combat is all about your stats and the roll of the dice, and it's satisfying and highly customizable. You can pause, plot out every action, attack, buff, and hit play, or tune down the difficulty and turn on your character AI and let them battle it out and just kind of relish in your character building strategies. It embraces the style of Dungeons & Dragons, Baldur's Gate, all that stuff. If you're into that, you will definitely love this. I know that. I like the combat, especially because it can get nice and challenging, but what really got its hooks in me was general character building. Right from the very start, there is a staggering amount of choices and ways to build your character, from just doing a solid class to a more experienced multi-class character to abilities, passive traits, basic stats, and weapon proficiencies. And then there's all the loot. If you're a loot person, this game is good. It's a gamer's game of a dense, immersive RPG, one where your quest book will be filled with stuff even 30 minutes into the game. But it's all presented in such a cool way. There's tons of great effects and plentiful voice acting. Look, some of it is a little corny and overdramatic, I'll say that, but it still draws you in, so I'll give them credit. Larger story sequences are told like a choose your own adventure storybook. You read, there's an illustration on screen, and you have different choices of how to handle situations. And like a good RPG I love, some of the decisions you make or the things your character can say or do depends on your stats, baby. I love that. This shit is the best and it works so good here. Look, this level of play makes the game fun, and it's what drew me to it. While it's old school, it still manages to feel unique in the current landscape of games. Speaking of landscapes though, you have the land of Deadfire in this game. This is a much more hostile world, and it's filled with oceans, uncharted islands, sea monsters, tropical towns, and pirates. It's a great mix of different fantasies, and Deadfire itself is just fascinating to explore. Towns are filled with bristling shops and inns and NPCs doing stuff with lots of ambient dialogue and conversations. Side quests are abundant right from the start, and they all, so far, at least from what I've played, have the depth you'd expect. Oh, and then there's all the ship stuff too. You can manage a crew that you can find throughout the story or hire in inns, and you set sail around the map to different locations and just do your thing. You can discover stuff, get into actual turn-based naval battles, and doing all of this drains resources that you have to manage. Now, I think some players might not like this, they might find it as yet another chore to manage, but I found myself enjoying the system so far. Like, for example, you especially have to manage your crew, keeping them fed and satisfied and healthy and all that. Give them cheap, crappy food and they'll be less effective and even unhappy with you, and some will rebel. That's a perfect example of just the amount of situational depth this game has. Almost everything can be tackled with like a variety of different ways, and everything has tons of outcomes. Talking your way out of a fight, sneaking around, outsmarting folks, scaring folks, making friends, or lies and deception, all of it are possibilities. The game is a complete playground for you and the characters you build. And what I've gotten my teeth into, I've really enjoyed. Thankfully, it also looks great too. It's a big upgrade from the first game. Lots of great real-time lighting effects and particle effects make the environment and especially the characters look and move in a way that isn't boring to watch at all, especially considering the camera angle and just because you're gonna be spending so much time with this game. Hours and hours and hours. I haven't even scratched the surface yet, but what I have sunk my teeth into, I've very much enjoyed. It's fun and satisfying and challenging, but it's also highly customizable from like the gameplay, like I said, to difficulty, to mechanics, to the HUD and the controls. And if it's not challenging enough, the Path of the Damned difficulty remains, and that's super hard. I think this game has a lot of value, even if maybe you're not the type of person that's into the camera angle, maybe that turns you off. The amount of systems going on, the amount of RPG-ness here, and the amount of content, the amount of things to play through, the stories, the side quests, the places to explore, and the systems, I think is worth checking out, even if maybe you haven't played many games like this. So yeah, I will definitely recommend it. I would definitely recommend going and playing the first one first, obviously, but that's Pillars of Eternity 2 Deadfire. And that's how Before You Buy works. You know how it goes by now. I give you some pros, some cons, and some personal opinion, so now I definitely want to hear yours down in the comments. How you feeling on this game? Maybe you're a hardcore fan who has been in it from the beginning, from the Kickstarter. Maybe you're more of a newcomer like me. Whoever you are, I want to hear your perspective down in the comments. Let's talk down there, and you guys know, clicking the like button does help us out, and we really do appreciate it over here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, you should, because we put out stuff like this every single day. Consider it. But as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.
What? What is this?
Run for it! You got style, Cap. Worm-riddled, ship-sinking, flat-fucking freaky style.
And now Port Marge is behind us. I thought this would be a relief.